Hey everyone, this is Caleb Wilder, selling a 1996 Nissan Maxima. So I'm going to go over the issues that it has. I'm going to go over dents and scratches that it has. I'm going to go over what's good about it, the repairs that have been done. Hopefully you'll get a good idea of what you'd be coming to look at, what you'd be buying, if you're interested in buying my car. Okay, folks. So I'm going to start listing issues and concerns first, and I'm going to name them and I'll go in detail later. So let's begin with the most important things. So, number one, there's a coolant drip when the car is running for a while and it gets hot. Um, okay, second most important, probably to most people, is there's no AC. Um, I'll tell you more about that. Third most important is three of the windows. One, the driver's side window works fine, but the other three windows do not work. Um, I'll talk more about that. Um, the front right headlight, uh, it works, but it'll go out and it's not a bulb because whenever you're driving and you hit a bump, it'll knock the light back on and it'll stay like that till you hit another bump, or sometimes it'll, I guess, whatever it's causing it, a loose connection, I suppose, somewhere, wiring connection, uh, it'll just turn back off after driving or hitting more bumps. And so that's kind of an off and on thing. It's not a bulb. Buying bulbs isn't going to fix the issue. I've already spent, money doing that a couple times before I realized, hey, it's not a bulb issue. Dents and scratches. So there's a scratch, kind of a, not really a dent, but kind of a pushed in scratch on the front hood. Then on the right side, there is a dented in front fender with scratches on it, and then a dented in rear right fender. Both of these on the right. From both of these came from scratching a pole to avoid a collision. Oh, suspension. So the front left shock. If you look at where they mount, if you look at where the struts mount to the body, there's a worn bushing on the front left shock mount. Um, that bushing is responsible for keeping the shock in place, firm. It absorbs uh, vibrations from big impacts while at the same time keeping the shock from rattling. Well, that bushing is worn and therefore the shock rattles. And if you hit a big pothole or a big rock or something in the road, you'll hear the shock kind of, you'll hear it impact the mount and it'll make a loud noise. That's a simple fix. Anyways, trying to think of a stereo system. When my dad got the car, the music, like whenever we played music, it was very faint, very quiet, and I never really knew why. But anyways, because of the windows not working, I took the door panels off, and sure enough, the speakers are dry rotted. They were just faded and old. But anyway, so those are trash. I don't know about the rear, speakers there in the back near the window, but the front speakers are trash. And the stereo itself, I have that here. It's a Sony Explode, but it's kind of old. There's no aux cord input, no Bluetooth. You know, it's not sure what year it is, but it's kind of old tech, and I would upgrade. I mean, if you bought this car and you wanted music, buy a new stereo, uh, and you've got to buy speakers to put in the doors, and then you'll be rocking. The shocks, they're kind of soft. Uh, it rides fine, but if you hit like I said, if you hit potholes or if you hit big bumps, you know, old soft suspension, the way to describe it is it'll cause you to bottom out easier, I guess. And so hitting small bumps, it actually is great. But hitting big bumps, if it bottoms out, you know, if the suspension fully compresses, then of course you'll feel a loud, I mean, you'll feel a big thud. And that's just because the suspension is getting old. So those are the issues. Now I'm going to talk about things that are fine or otherwise repairs that I've done to make sure the vehicle is fine. So there's currently no lights on the instrument panel, no check engine light, no airbag lights, nothing like that. And I can show you once I crank up the vehicle. Other things that are good. It's a Nissan Maxima. If you read up about this year model, the engine that's in it, these last a long time. You take care of them, and they'll, you know, they'll last you for 300 plus thousand miles. Anyways, since my dad has had it, and since he passed it to me, we've always had regular oil changes. So I've always had the oil changed. I began using synthetic not long after I took the vehicle. It had a pinhole leak in the exhaust when my dad bought the vehicle, and he drove it like that for a while, but it got annoying. So my dad took it to a exhaust shop and had a new exhaust pipe put on. When I began driving it, that had already been done, and there were no issues for quite a while. But then I say after a year, maybe a little bit less, of driving the car, I had to replace a knock sensor. Um, when those go bad, they'll cause your engine to sputter and die. I replaced that. Also, the engine temperature sensor. Um, my temperature gauge started, you know, going haywire, and that's just because the sensor was no longer able to read the temperature, and the inputs were going crazy. But yeah, that was replaced, and all those things were fixed. Let's see, other good things. Oh, so a few months ago, the uh, oil started leaking from the valve covers, and I didn't know that was the case at first. I just knew that it was leaking oil from the front because it was smoking, and had it looked at by a mechanic, and it was a uh, valve cover gasket that's, you know, worn and broken. So they replaced, it's a V6 engine, so they replaced both valve cover gaskets, and they also did something with hoses in the coolant system. They replaced some hoses, and so that was, you know, that solved that problem. No more, you know, smoke, no more leaking oil. Um, then a few months later, the temperature gauge started showing hot, and took it to a mechanic. It turned out my radiator had a small leak in it, and air bubbles were getting in to the coolant, and when that happens, that'll cause, what it was is the temperature gauge would spike up hot for a few seconds and then go back down. That was because of air bubbles. Anyways, $350. Paid for new radiator cap, radiator hose. So those are things that should last a while. Um, the interior in this thing is really clean. No rips or tears. no terrible stains, no pets, no pet smells, no body odors. Um, I'm a fan of this interior just because of all that. Okay, here's the part where I show you, you know, what works, what doesn't, and actually talk in detail about the issues, um, and show you this stuff. So I'm going to show you the headlights first. So looks like both of them are not on right now. The switch is turned on, but they're not working. So let's put them in high beam. Sometimes this is the case. So the right front low beam is usually the one that's out whenever usually both low beams aren't out, but when they are, it's usually the front right. But here, the high beam on the front right is the one that's working, and on the left it's not. So like I said before, you run over some bumps and it'll make those turn back on. I'm not saying that I recommend anyone drive like this, for a long time, but it's just a matter of fixing some kind of wiring issue. Let me show you the hazards. So as you can see, both turn signals work. Brake lights, rear turn signals work. Interior lights, they work. Okay, now I'm going to show you the dents. So this is from a metal hose reel. Bumped into that and it scraped the hook on the hose reel, scraped right here, and of course right here as well. Dented this in a little bit. Oh, by the way, I have it covered in clear coat. I sprayed on clear finish so that it doesn't rust. Okay, this is where I scraped a pole to avoid a collision. I've also sprayed clear coat on this so that it doesn't rust. You can see it a little bit, but that's just to make sure it doesn't get any worse. Then the pole luckily only scraped the plastic trim on the doors, so they're good. But on the rear end, it scraped. You can see here, there, and then of course this is kind of a dent, and of course it broke off the tail light plastic right there. Paint, as you can see, obviously the car needs to be washed, but paint, it's a 24, 25-year-old car, so it's not great. Here is the sunroof. I forgot to mention that and the issues, but the deal with this is it started leaking one day when it was raining a lot, and I did a lot of research, Googled, why would it start leaking, and there's tubes. So if you took off this tape, you would see that there's cracks here, and water would normally go into those cracks, and there's tubes that drain this water out, and I don't know where they drain it out, but obviously away from the interior. But anyways, it was leaking, so that means that those tubes are cracked and are leaking into the ceiling, or otherwise they're clogged up and causing too much buildup. I'm not really sure. It's one or the other or both. And so I read online where someone got waterproof tape. This is UV resistant waterproof tape, and I covered those cracks and have never had a leak since. I personally don't care to use the sunroof, so I'm not gonna fix it. If you want to fix it, you can. In this part, I'm cranking the car, showing you that there's no trouble codes. As you can see, 242,905 miles as of today. Seatbelt light and door open, just because my door's open and I'm not buckled up. AC, so I don't know if my phone will pick this up. Let's see if it will. So I don't know if you can hear that in the video, but the blowers work great, but either a compressor or refrigerant issue, something like that, keeps it from blowing cold. Heat blows fine in the winter, so that's not an issue. While I'm at it, you know, I think I already showed in the other video, other part of the video, the stereo connection. Anyways, here's the driver's window. Rolls down and up just fine. However, this window, when you press the button, it clicks, and the rear windows, you probably can't hear it, but there was the rear left, and there's the rear right. So their motors work. It's just window regulators that they need in order to roll up and down. Anyways, let's take a look at the motor. Alright, so relatively new battery. I mean, not new, but it was replaced a few years ago. It works really good. Here's what I'm talking about. Inside of this mount, there's a bushing right here. This bushing is dry rotted and old, as you can see. Just me pushing on the car with my hands can make it wiggle. It's not supposed to wiggle like that whenever there's a brand new bushing, you know, a good bushing inside. For reference, this side is good. A lot less wiggle whenever I press on it with my hand. Anyways, let's take a look here. So as you can see, I hope you can hear me over the engine, but as you can see, there's where some coolant is dripping, and where it drips from so it's dripping so slow that I can't even see where it's coming from at the moment, but it normally drips from that edge of the oil pan, and that's coming from above the water pump, and the water pump is somewhere up in here, up in that area. I'm not really sure what that looks like, but some quick research will show you how much that costs. Anyways, as you can see, it's not leaking much right now, barely even dripping. So I keep a jug of coolant handy, but in the 2.5 weeks that it's been dripping, I've only added coolant once, and I haven't yet encountered a spike in engine temperature. So that kind of shows you the rate at which the coolant leaks, and how it's not a super urgent issue. Let's see, what else is there? That's pretty much it. I'm gonna show you the fact that it runs and drives fine. So I just put it in drive. I'm at my sister apartment complex, the one owned by the same place that I stay at. Anyways, so that's going forward. Oh yeah, headlights. See, those, I had to have the high beams on. So the reverse works good. Second works fine. Don't know if you can hear the engine, but engine sounds fine. Picks up and goes as it should. My battery's too low to use flash, but I'm driving and I'm gonna let you listen to the suspension. So if you can hear that rattling, that's just because of that bushing. And then of course, you know, the suspension is really soft, so the wheels are gonna move a lot up and down. Also, the brakes probably need pads soon. But aside from that, it stops fine. No, you know, the brakes haven't failed on me or anything, but I may be replacing those if the car doesn't sell quickly, just so I can drive this thing and not have to worry if I need to slam on the brakes. Obviously it runs and drives fine. Just drove back to my apartment. I just drove it around some today, still doing fine. What else? I listed the repairs that have been done. So I hope this gives you a good idea of, you know, if you're interested in this car. I'll sell it for $1,200 cash. Would I take less? Well, money talks. If you come look at it and you show me cash and you don't waste my time, then I might cut you a deal, but I'm not desperate to sell. This isn't a piece of junk. It's not a scrapyard item. This is a running car that'll run many more miles. Please don't, lowball me. I hope this video answers all questions about the condition, about the issues, about the history of it. And if you're interested, just give me a call or text or message me on Facebook, and we can set up a time for you to come look at it.